Welcome to this introduction to systems thinking and systems theory. In this video we'll take a very brief overview of systems thinking and systems concepts, and then we'll talk about how we're going to employ them in our course. Systems thinking is not a new discipline, but modern systems thinking can pretty much be traced back to the 1930s and 40s and evolved out of the work of von Bertalanffy and his general systems theory and open systems theory. It also incorporates the work of Wiener on cybernetics. Systems theory in general is the interdisciplinary study of systems with the goal of elucidating principles that can be applied to all types of systems at different levels and in different fields of research. As we go along, you'll find that there are varying definitions of systems theory, and so you won't find a precise meaning for it, but generally you can regard systems theory as a specialization of systems thinking. So the term systems theory really originates from Bertalanffy's general systems theory. Now, general systems theory was Bertalanffy's attempt to bring under one heading the various issues related with dealing with systems. And in general systems theory, he writes, there exist models, principles and laws that apply to generalized systems or their subclasses, irrespective of their particular kind, the nature of their component elements, and the relationships or forces between them. So he really was searching for a theory, not of systems per se, but a more general, universal theory that evolved principles that could be applied to different systems in general. Going back to the evolution of systems thinking, in the 1950s, the principles that were identified in the 1930s and 40s were kind of codified and put together into the discipline of systems thinking, and was organized under the International Society for Systems Sciences. Now, if you have a look at systems thinking is really the general process of understanding how things, which are regarded as systems, influence one another within a whole. This is a very important part of systems definition, is the idea that it is not really possible to solve a problem just by looking at the individual parts of the overall problem. Rather, one needs to look at the different relationships between the identified parts of the system. So systems thinking then is not one thing, but it's a set of practices that is based on the belief that the component parts of a system can best be understood in the context of their relationships with one another, rather than in isolation. So it focuses on cyclical processes rather than linear cause and effect. Then also in the 1950s and 60s, it was recognized that the general systems approach wasn't able to deal with all the issues that confronted organizations and people and technology, and so there was in the way in which systems were viewed, and systems thinking evolved into three kind of separate approaches. The soft systems methodology, which is systems thinking applied to human situations, and the way that work is conducted by people. and then organizational cybernetics, which involved the thinking from cybernetics and machines and applied it to the way the organization operated, and then the work particularly of Ackoff, which we will examine a little bit later on how systems thinking can be used to deal with the messiness of real-world problems. Then in the 1990s, these three approaches have been brought together into the general banner of critical systems thinking.